Oh, hello, boys and girls. Thank you for joining us. Alfie and I were just having a little chat. We've got a bit of a problem. You see, you know how Alfie very often has arguments with his friends. Well, there's been one big argument with Charlie, hasn't there? You're not feeling happy. No, I know. And I know Charlie did something that wasn't very nice at all. He was a bit unkind to him. And you've got a right to feel a bit upset. But Charlie has said sorry, hasn't he? You don't care if he said sorry. But if he's really sorry, you should forgive him and be friends again. You will forgive him. That's good. But not yet. What are you going to do? You want to pay him back. Well, you know, Alfie, sometimes that doesn't always work, because if you try to pay him back for something he's done, and he did do something wrong, then he want to pay you back for what you have done, and it'll just go on. Sometimes it's better just to shake hands and be friends again. And sometimes it's good to forgive because it makes you feel good. You've got a feeling I've got a story coming. Well, yes, I have, because today's story is very much about forgiveness. Do you want to listen to it? You're not going to change your mind? No. Okay, well, let's see. Let's have the story, shall we? Can you remember how we finished last week? You've forgotten. Okay, I'll remind you. David had been playing music for King Saul because King Saul was grumpy. You remember now? Yeah, David was playing the harp. Well done. Yeah, and King Saul was getting all grumpy, and then Saul realized it was David who was singing to him. And do you remember what he tried to do? He threw a spear at him. Well done. Yeah, and David ran away. He didn't stop to argue about it. So David found out that Saul was really being really nasty to him. So a bit like you and Charlie. Did David want to get his own back? Well, let's have the story. David ran away. But King Saul, he was still feeling angry. So King Saul, he got together some of his army and said, right, men, we're going on a hunt. We're going to find David. We're going to get him. Which wasn't very nice at all. Now, there were some people who really felt sorry for David, and they knew he was a good man. So they went with him. They became his friends. But David, he just kept out of Saul's way. But Saul, he was determined to catch David. And he chased David all over the place. Wherever David was, Saul was there behind him, trying to catch him. But somehow, David managed to escape all the time. Well, one day, David and his men were out in the country, and they came across a cave. And they said, David, shall we stay in here for the night? Good idea, said David. We'll be able to shelter in here. You keep a lookout. And all the rest of them went into this big cave, went into the back of the cave and settled down for the night. But then the one who was on lookout shouted, hey, there's somebody coming. It's King Saul and all his army. What are we going to do? If he finds us in here, we haven't got a chance. We can't escape. Well, David knew that God was looking after him, and he said, don't worry, things are going to be all right. Well, King Saul, he stopped with all his army just outside the cave. And all of David and his men were listening to what they were doing. And Saul said, you settle down here. I'm going into that cave. And Saul went into the cave all on his own. And he settled down. He lay down on the ground. He went fast asleep. One of David's men said, now's your chance, David. This is the one who's been trying to kill you. Now you can get him. Let me do it. No, said David. And David pulled out his sword and crept up behind where Saul was fast asleep. David bent down and with one stroke of his sword, he cut off a bit of Saul's coat. Yeah. Didn't he hurt Saul? No, he didn't touch King Saul. He just cut off a bit of his cloak. Well, a bit later, Saul woke up, went out of the cave, and started walking back towards his men. When he got a little way away, David followed him out of the cave and shouted, "Your Majesty!" And Saul turned around. He said, "David, is that you? Where do you come from?" And David said, "King Saul, I could have killed you while you were sleeping. Look, I cut off a bit of your coat." And Saul realized that David had been very kind to him, and he felt very ashamed. And he said, "David, I'm sorry. I'm in the wrong. Will you forgive me?" David said, "Yes, I will." Well, Saul took his men and went away and left David alone for a while. But David showed how kind he could be. He showed that sometimes it's better to forgive. Did Saul stop chasing David? Well, no, he didn't. But, well, there's another side to the story. Because David, although Saul was trying to hurt him, he had one very good friend. Not just those who were in his army, but he had one very good friend. I think I might tell you about him next week. No, I can't tell you about him now. We haven't got time. You'll have to wait till next week. I love doing that. Boys and girls, I hope you like the story. And you know, there's something there for all of us, isn't there? Sometimes we do argue with our friends, and sometimes it's good just to forget about the arguments and be friends again. David learned that. Saul never did. I hope you do. Have a great week. I'll speak to you again soon. Bye for now.